Alrighty, well, I'll go ahead and just get started. If someone joins in a minute here, I'll make sure to get them in. But I'm Devin. I'm with Club Express. I do a lot of the training and webinars and that type of thing. Um, Today, we're just going to focus on the kind of like core functionality and specifically the membership portal aspect of the tool. So those of you who already have administrative access, if you ever log into the site, you should see this option in the upper right-hand corner that says Control Panel. That is where you go to do any sort of administrative controls. Those of you, or if any of you don't have admin controls yet, we'll be going over how to add administrators later, so you'll be able to coordinate and get this access if you don't already have it. Once you're logged into the website, which you simply do by coming up here to the upper right-hand corner. If you're not logged in, instead of seeing this control panel favorites and your name in the upper corner, you would just see member login. And then once you log in, it'll change to this control panel view. Once you click on control panel, this is the screen you will see. This is our, it's just our control panel. It's where you have all access to all of the admin functions behind the scenes. This is kind of like your one-stop shop. If you need to make a change to your system, this is where you start. The control panel is broken into a handful of what we call tabs. The one we're primarily focusing on today is the people tab, but we also have website and money. You have your organization tab, communications, and support. All of these have their own individual functions within them. And all of those functions are broken into three different kind of categories, which are admin functions, website modules, and setup. The setup section is kind of the set it and forget it kind of place where once you get all of these set up the way you want, you pretty much never have to touch them again. Website modules is a category for tools that have both a front and back end function. So these are tools that your members may interact with. And then there's also admin functions, which are the tools that are admin only tools. So there's no function in these for members to interact with. It's only for admins to come in here and kind of get information. Each of these tabs has one thing in common, one more thing in common, which is this little reports option. So under admin functions, each tab will have reports here, and each tab's reports button is going to show you very specific reports related to the tab that you're in. So if I click on reports when I'm in the people tab, I'm going to see all of our membership reports. Whereas if I go over to money and I still have reports, but all of my other functions have changed, these reports are going to be all of our like invoices and transactions and payments. So that's kind of just the overview of how to navigate. One other thing I do want to show you before we go into the actual functions in the people tab is the support tab over here. This is less a tab for you controlling your website. This is a tab where you can go to kind of get help getting around your system. So if we look here up at the very top, we'll see we have our little bootcamp information, which is, a semi-annual kind of annual like kind of seminar that we have that goes over some features. And then on the left-hand side, we've got online help. This is to get to our online help system, as well as all of our manuals that go over all of our different tools. And on the right-hand side over here, we've got our administrators forum. If you're an administrator of Club Express, you can just click on this and we have a Club Express forum where administrators can kind of talk to other administrators. So if you have a question on if you're curious about how another administrator did something, you can come here to get information on that. And then also we have our video tutorial, our catalog of video tutorials, and these are broken up by section of the control panel. And we have tons and tons of videos that go step by step through different parts of the control panel. And we have so much video content, and we are constantly creating more for all of the videos that we are constantly working on. And then down here at the bottom, if you, instead of reaching out to another administrator, if you need help with some sort of bug or can't figure something out, or you see, something that's confusing you, you can always reach out to us here at Club Express. All administrators and coordinators have full access to the support, and it's completely unlimited. We don't charge by the hour or anything like that for support calls. So if you have to email us or send us or give us a call, don't hesitate. You can always just call us at this number or shoot us an email at our support email address, and we'll get to you as fast as possible. And in fact, like our turnaround time is usually under a day for our support emails, and our phone system is always manned by live people. There's not a place you on hold for however long. There's not an automated system. You'll always get a person when you call that number. All right. So now let's go ahead and hop over to our people tab of the control panel. And the first function we're going to take a look at today is the people manager. And this is probably where we're going to spend most of our time today. It is a very robust system, and it is one of our most used modules within the website. So if we click on people manager, we're going to get presented with this screen right here. You have a number of buttons across the top, and then you have this kind of search field here. The buttons across the top, we're going to get to these buttons in a few minutes. This button right here just hides and shows this search button. I usually just leave that showing. There's if you want to hide it, you can, but I usually just leave it there. When you are searching, it always defaults to what we call our default search, which is looking for members. You do have the option to search for non-members, which are people in your organization that don't have a login, and you're just holding on to their contact information, but they're not actually members. So they don't have a login. They can't do a lot of the members only functions, but you are hanging on to their contact information. We can access all of that from this same people manager as well, just by toggling over here to non-members. You also have the option to search for both members and non-members, and you would get your search results would be a combination of the two. Again, the default is always set to members. And then in this little filters section, this is where we can actually filter down who we are looking for. The default is always member status and last name, but we can actually get even more granular with that by clicking this add filter button over here, and we can create more filters for the search results that we're looking for. And then if we've gotten too specific with our filters, you can also click on these X's over here on the right-hand side to remove a specific filter. For the filters that we're looking at, you've got these little drop-down options. So like I said, by default, it's always going to be member status, but you can change that to any of these parameters over here. You can search by address or email or zip code, phone number. You can search by the type of member or their membership level. I'm not, I wish they were higher in this list, but 3 of my favorite ones to search by are these bottom 3 right here, which are recent addition, which is where you can look for members that were added within a certain time frame. So this is an easy way for you to look at, like, who's recently joined our organization, and we can come over here and say, show me everyone that's been added in the last 30 days. You also have the option for is in renewal cycle. If your organization requires people to renew over time to stay current with their dues, we have what's called a renewal cycle, and we may touch on that a little bit later, but essentially this just means, is someone close to time for their renewing, yes or no? And you get this little toggle where we can say, I want to see everyone that needs to renew, and it'll just give you a list of those people. And the last one that I like to point out is this with pending payment. So if anyone owes dues or has an outstanding payment on their system, you can just choose this option, and it will show you people that owe money for one reason or another. But again, we can always have that default search, and I'm going to reset to it right now. Once we have set our filters how we want to search for, you have this search button down here in the right-hand corner, and that will give you all of your members and or non-members that meet the criteria that you've filled in here. You can also always hit reset, and it'll set it back to our default search, which is member status and last name. Speaking of member status, I do want to go down these options right here. So member status is something that's very important to Club Express because it has a lot of implications throughout the website. Our default search is always going to be looking at active and expired members. These two will always be pre-checked for you because this is what almost everyone falls into. Active means that, if you're collecting dues, then they are paid up and they are good on their dues. They are currently a member, they can log in, and everything is, hunky-dory with them. If someone is expired, all that means is that their expiration date came and went, and they did not renew their membership, and they switch over to expired. That does not remove them from the system. All they have to do to become active again is log in, and the system will tell them, hey, you're expired, please renew your membership. And once they complete that renewal, they would pop back up to active. We check this by default because a lot of times people, when they're looking for members, they might be missing someone if they're only looking for active, and that's because someone may have accidentally expired. The rest of these statuses that are unchecked by default are a little bit more niche, and that's why we don't check them. Dropped, just going down the list, dropped here is our version of deleted. We are very careful with the information that we delete because we know that we're dealing with, people's personal information. And, as difficult as it is to explain, collecting personal information these days, it's also difficult to explain, losing it. So instead of just a simple delete option when you're removing a member, we drop them. They go into this drop status where they are no longer receiving emails. They can no longer log in. They're no longer interacting with your system in any meaningful way, but they do still show up on this dropped list. If you want to go say, hey, that member we had 3 years ago that, helped us out with catering or something, maybe we can reach out to them. You'll still have their information that you can go look up in the system by checking this dropped option. Then we can go look through all of our dropped members. Frozen is functionally similar to dropped. The difference with frozen is going to be that it is intentionally a temporary setting. So frozen is specifically built for things like if someone breaks a club rule, and maybe their membership is being reviewed and you're not sure if they're going to be able to be a member anymore, maybe during that review process, you can freeze them. And just like dropped, they're not going to get emails. They can't log in. If they try to log in, it'll tell them, your membership is frozen, reach out to an administrator. And that's just a way to kind of put someone in like Club Express purgatory and say, maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't. Maybe we'll, instead of like unfreezing them, we can just send them right to dropped. But that's just an option for you to change their status. And we'll go over changing statuses here in just a minute. Bulk load, you'll only use this once. When your organization first comes online with us, we upload all of your members, but we don't activate them right away until you say we're ready to activate. Before they're activated, they kind of hang out in this, what we call bulk load status. Once you are done and your site is up and running, you'll never use this again. New pending payment. If your organization requires membership dues for becoming a member, so if they have to pay to be a member, once they join, they go into new pending payment because they haven't paid, but they haven't expired. So there's kind of this like weird middle ground where they're not a paid member yet. So they're definitely not active, but they also aren't expired because they obviously haven't gone through a session yet. So this is for members that have joined, but are not yet fully active because they haven't submitted payment. Similarly, if your organization requires approval, there is a prospective option where when someone requests to join, they're not allowed to pay or become active or log in until an administrator approves them. And once they're approved, then they would go to this new pending payment status. And then once they pay, they would go to the active status. So it's kind of this flow of if you both require approval and require payment, when someone joins, they would become prospective. Once they're approved, they would go into new pending payment. Once they've paid, they become active. And then they go back and forth between this active and expired. And then our last status is trial down here. This doesn't look like it's one that you'll be using, so you can kind of ignore it for the time being. Trial is if you offer trial memberships for your organization, but honestly, very few organizations use trial, but because it's built into our system, it has to show up here. And that's all of our statuses that your members, may or may not be in. If they're not in one of these statuses, then they're not a member. Every member is always in at least one of these statuses. So in terms of actually searching for your members and seeing how you can manage them, once you have filled this in for the categorization you want, you can just hit search. So if I'm searching for someone, let's say, last name Levine, and I just type L here for Levine, there we get all of our members that are currently active or expired with the last name starting with L. I can also just leave this blank and just hit search, and this is going to give me all of my members that are currently active or expired. So that's something that I do quite frequently is I'll just come to this page and I'll leave the default search completely alone, and I'll just hit search because I just want to get a list of all the members. It's going to give you pages here where you can, sort through all the pages of your currently active members. And then you get the member information in these little rows here. So if we're going to take Ronnie as an example, we can see, the company information that they filled in. If they haven't filled in a company, it's just going to say no company specified. It's going to give us their name, their member number, and then in parentheses over here is their username, which is public. their password is private. Even we as administrators, even I as a system administrator cannot go in and see a member's password. That's always private for that member. This next column over here, we will see their membership type and their status. This is where we would come to make a status change to a member. You'll notice when I hover over the status, not only does it tell us what status they're currently in, but I can actually click on it, and clicking on that will allow us to change their current member status. So I can click right here, and because Ronnie is currently active, I have three options. I can freeze them. So if they've broken some sort of rule, I can hit freeze and save. They switch to the frozen status. Once they're frozen, they wouldn't be able to log in, just like we mentioned before. Another option would be drop. And when you click drop, you get this extra little box here to fill in where you have to say, why are you dropping them? The reason for that is, dropping a member is a very permanent action. They can no longer log in. They no longer get emails, things like that. So we want you to fill in. It's just kind of an extra stopgap measure to make sure that you're not accidentally dropping someone. You can say, maybe someone has two accounts, and so we're going to remove one of those two accounts with the option duplicate. And maybe if a member passes away, we can choose deceased and say this, this member passed away, so they're no longer a member. And then once you've selected the reason, you have three options of what to do if they have outstanding transactions. If the member, for example, again, is deceased or something of that sort, you can choose to delete the pending membership transactions and saying, we're not obviously not expecting to collect funds from this person now that they're dropped. A second option, especially if we are dealing with a duplicate member, we can choose move all transactions to another member. If we select this option, we'll see right here, select member, where we can take all of the transactions, and this includes things like event history, collectible history, anything they've done in their profile, and we can choose to merge it over to another profile. So we've actually set up a great example right here. Ronnie has two accounts set up, and one of them has a transaction on it and another one does not. So we could say, I want to move this transaction over so that the other account still owes on that transaction and all that history is maintained. And we can come over here and say select member. And this select member screen, you will see all over Club Express. This little window right here is something that you'll see pop up tons of times. Whenever you're just searching for a member, this is what you'll see. And we can search by last name, go find Ronnie and say, Ronnie 2, the member number 2 is the one that we're looking for. Select that. And once we select and save, it'll move everything on the Ronnie profile over to the other Ronnie profile and then drop the original one that we selected. And then our final option here is just do not change anything. That would leave all of that transaction history and stuff alone so we can come back and look at it later. And then finally, our third option down here is expire, where we can come in here and manually expire a member. This is something you don't have to do. If you leave their expiration date alone, so right now, this membership account we're playing with, this expiration date is 1/13/2023. On January 13th, 2023, this account will expire on its own. We don't have to manually expire it. But if someone, let's say, someone needs a refund on their membership dues, or for one reason or other, we just want to manually set someone to an expired membership, you do have that control as an administrator. Because you're an administrator, you get to do kind of whatever you want with the system. So that's how you change their status by clicking on their status right here. These next lines will give you information like their member level, which shouldn't be something you have to worry about very often. It'll also give you their expiration date, which is something you should definitely keep an eye on. And then you get all of these little icons over here. Club Express loves icons. We love to just make little things that you can click on, and they're just little like pictures. We love, pictography. A lot of times these images are not necessarily self-explanatory. So like, what does this pencil do? What does this little badge do? Yes, you can hover over them to get a description, but anytime you see little icons like these, you will also see this maintain piece of information and this icon in the top right-hand corner. If you hover over this icon right here, it will give you a breakdown of what each icon means. And so we can see by looking at this little option, we see the pencil takes us to their profile to make changes to the profile. This is our mailing list categories, this little categorization icon. We can click on their little, what looks like an ID card to see their bio, their membership bio. Notes, which is where we can take notes about a member that are specific to that member, but are not visible to them. So this notes icon means we can take notes about the member, but the member cannot see these notes. These are admin only notes about a person. Charge credit. Charge credit is where we can either charge a member manually, saying, you owe us $15 for something that our system didn't automatically collect. We can also credit them and say, you helped clean up afterwards, so we're going to give you a $15 credit that you can use in the future. Then there's this renew icon. Now, this one is one of the few that will change. Right now, the renew icon is black, and it's got this little kind of arrow that means renew their membership. If you click on this when it's black, that means they don't necessarily need to renew right at this moment, but we as administrators can say, I'm going to, if someone sends us a check and says, hey, I want to pay early for next year's membership, we can come in here and manually renew them, even though it's significantly ahead of time for their renewal. When it is time for them to renew, this will turn red. The button will do the same thing, but it is just a visual cue letting us know this person is in their window for needing to renew their membership. The last two down here, reports and payments. This icon, reports, this blue journal, you'll see this icon all over the place. This reports icon always means reports, no matter where you see it. And that just means we can run reports related to whatever we're currently looking at. And this last one is a $ for payments. You'll notice some of these don't have the $. The $ will only ever show up if that person owes money for something. If there is no $, then that means there are no transactions that are outstanding. If there is a $, that means there's something that this person has in their profile that they currently haven't paid for. If we click on this, it would take us to the payment screen to then record that payment. So if someone mails us a check for, say $50, we can come in here and see that they owe money, click on this, and then record that check payment. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just do an example of one of those. So let's say I'm going to charge this, membership number 5. When I click on this, I get my charge screen where I can enter, I'm either going to charge or credit. What is the date of the charge? What type of charge? It's almost always miscellaneous, because if we're having to do this, that means that the system didn't automatically process the charge. And we'll say, $10 for banana bread. And I'll say, this is a merchandise. So I'm just going to manually charge Ronnie for something. Now that I have charged Ronnie, there is a charge on this member profile for $10. And because there's now a charge, this $ shows up. And if I click on it, it takes us to our payment page. And we can see there's that miscellaneous charge I made. There's the date it's for. There's the detail of what the charge is about, banana bread, $10. And this is our payment screen where we can come in. It's a very similar payment screen, both for members and for administrators. The only difference when we're looking at this as an administrator is we have this pencil right here. Pencil always means make a change. Anytime you see pencil on Club Express, it means make an edit to this section. We as administrators can say, I don't want to pay the full amount. I'm going to record, $5 of this right now, or $2 if I mistype. But this lets us change the amount that we're recording. Members will always have to pay for a full transaction. And the other thing that's different for us as administrators is we have other options here. A member would only see the option for, say, credit card and print a, invoice for sending a check. But we as administrators have the options to say we received a check, we received cash. We also have the option to write off, meaning we understand that we're not going to receive this money. And in any financial reports we run, it wouldn't count the money for this transaction towards our income. Another similar option to write off is comp, which is kind of the alternate version of that, whereas we're not collecting money for it, but we're giving this to them for free. It's a gift. We're gifting them this amount. So write off means, they don't actually owe this amount. Comp means they owe this amount, but we're gifting it to them. The other option is a check payable to Club sent to Club Express. So if Club Express receives a check, we would record it this way for you. And then the last option finally is someone pays you by, like, say, Venmo or something like that, or some third-party payment system that's not connected to Club Express. You can say we process this by a separate system, and you can leave a note about that payment here. But for now, we'll go ahead and say, last time I saw Ronnie, she gave me, a $10, a $10, what's the word for money? Bill. That's the word. Last time I saw Ronnie, she gave me a $10 bill for the banana bread. I'm recording in the system. And then I have these options down here. I have the option to print invoice. If I click print invoice, it will give me a PDF where it will detail the amount that Ronnie owes. And if Ronnie wants to pay by check, here's the information for sending that check to us. The other option is to print this page. If you want to save it for your records, you can print the entire payment page. Record cash payment, where I can say I have selected cash here. And so I want to record the payment, and that would mark this transaction as paid in the system. And then the final option over here is pay later, where we can click on this and say, I'll come back to this later. It'll say I have elected not to pay currently. The pending charges are still there. If I do choose to record that payment, I'll say cash one more time and hit record cash payment. Now, because I've paid for that, that $ disappears. So now let's go back and take a look at what that did to our system. So if we come over here and let's click on this very first icon, this pencil is probably the most common thing you will click on this page. So we'll come to this page, we would search for our members, and the most common thing we'll usually do is go into their member profile and click this pencil, because this gives us huge amounts of control over our membership. Once we click on this page, we are now looking at the member profile for the person that we've selected. We get a membership summary where it gives us all of their general information, a little profile picture if they have uploaded one, their current email address. All of your members will also have this little tutorial video in the upper right-hand corner that tells them how to navigate their own membership profile. And as a note, this profile will look very similar to your members as well if they visit their own profile, but we as administrators have a few extra controls that they don't. The actual member profile is broken into these little cards for making changes below. We have their basic member information, which is things like name, address, phone number, email, those types of pieces of information. We have additional member data, which is a section of Club Express where you can say, we want to collect specific information that Club Express doesn't already collect. And so if we click in here, membership join year, this is a piece of information that you are collecting that we didn't already set up to collect. And then we have this option over here. This third option is standard member directory. And this is where if someone can come in and edit their bio, they can put in things like, spouse birthday. This is where they upload their profile picture. They can add a banner image, so it'll look a little bit like kind of like a Facebook page somewhat. They can fill in social networking links if they want to, share, say, their Facebook, their Twitter, anything of that sort. And then there's also this formatted text section. There's this blank kind of like Word document editor where they can come in and fill in a biography about them if they want to say, hey, I'm, a professional in this field. I have this many years of experience, so on and so forth. They can come in here and write about themselves for a little like bio. And information they put in there would show up in your membership directory if you make that public. Or you can even make that available to other members only. And then along the bottom here are kind of our extra little features. Under more member options, you've got things like member type and expiration and join date. That's one of those admin only functions. So a member can look at their member type and expiration join date, but we as administrators can actually come in here and make changes to those, whereas the members cannot. Privacy cancel remove. This is where members can come in and change their privacy settings. So this is where a member can come and say, whether they want to receive emails or not. We, because of, international technology laws, we have to offer people the option to unsubscribe from general emails. So they have the option to say, I agree, I agree, but don't send me emails, or I do not agree. If they choose I do not agree, it will remove them from the system. They have to agree to the general terms of use, obviously, in order to use the system. It's the terms of use. Down here under optional additional charges, that's something you probably won't be worrying about very often. Attachments, similarly, doesn't seem like it's something you'll have to worry about very often. That's if your members want to upload documents about them to their profile. Things like, if you have a license or something of that sort that you need them to upload, that's where they would go for it. Histories is a very important one. There are 3 different histories that show up here right now. If you add things like donations, donation history would show up here as well. Transaction history and payment history are 2 different items, because transactions are things they have purchased and payments are payments they submitted towards it. We allow people to submit one payment for multiple transactions. So we have to track those histories differently, because if someone buys 2 things and pays for it with one payment, they would have 2 items in their transaction history and one payment for it. So if we take a look, there is our banana bread. And we can come in here and see there's that miscellaneous charge for $10 that I added. It has been paid. And if we click on this little receipt icon, we can see there's the banana bread. There's the $10 I paid for it. The payment was cash paid to the club. And I can actually click on a further receipt to see even more details about that payment. And that's where we can go and look up a specific member's kind of like payment history. And then similarly, if we click on payments, we see this option in the reverse. We see the payment, we can click on the receipt to get the receipt information, and this is information about what the payment was applied to. You do notice that each of these has a trash can option. If a transaction is able to be deleted, it will show up here. A note about the trash can: if it is a transaction paid by credit card, you cannot delete the payment. So because this is a cash payment, I do have the option to delete it. I can say I gave that cash back, or I never received that cash. I can just delete that payment. And now that there's no payment tied to it, we'll see in the transaction history, it says not paid because I deleted that payment. I get the $ here again, and I do have the option also to delete this entire transaction. I can say cancel the transaction. And so now I've deleted both the transaction. So now I didn't actually get the banana bread, and I deleted the payment. So I didn't pay $10. And now it's like it never happened. That's easier because it's paper money and it's got a paper trail. Whereas with credit card transactions, that is hard coded into the system. There's a digital trail and we have to keep track of that. So those won't have the trash can icon. There will be a refund option where you can go through a different process. I can't demo that right now because I would actually have to create a credit card transaction, but essentially it's a similar process, but the information actually sticks around because the system recorded a credit card transaction. Finally, on this little history section is event history. This is where we can come in and look at all of the events that this member that we're looking at has attended. Forums, if you have an active forum, this is where members can come in and choose what forums they belong to, how they appear in the forums, and how they want to receive forum information that they've signed up for. And then over here in the right-hand corner is our website functions. They will have the option to reset their password, and they'll have the option to download any digital downloads connected to the site. So if someone, purchases a digital download or attends a class that has a, say, like a certificate attached to it, this is where they can come to download those things. Reset password. This is one, especially for administrators that are doing membership management. I'm going to take a second to kind of expound on this because there is a neat tool that we don't really shout from the mountaintop just because members get uncomfortable with it sometimes, but it's good control for admins to have. So a note about reset password. For Ronnie right here, if I click this reset password, it's going to say, are we sure? If I hit OK right now, it is going to send an email to Ronnie's email address saying your password has been reset. It will give Ronnie their username and it'll give them their temporary password. So it will give them a password that is different from the one that they set up before. They can then log in with that. And whenever you log in with a temporary password, it's going to ask you to set a permanent password. If someone is having trouble with their email address, say they're not receiving that email, or they no longer have access to this email, or they're not using email at all, if we need to reset their password without sending them an email, you have the option to come in here into their basic information. Again, this is where we're storing their name, their email address, their company they work for, things like that. If we temporarily cut out the email address and save, right now it says current email address, no email address on the account. If I hit reset password right now, because there's no email for it to send to, instead it's going to give us a little window right in the middle of this page. And it's going to tell us, the administrator, their username, and it will give us, the administrator, a temporary password that we can then tell to that member verbally, or we can copy and paste it and text it to them, however you want to communicate to them. But that is just kind of a little workaround if someone is having trouble getting into the system and you need to send them an email, or you can't send them an email. You can come in here and take that email out, reset their password. It'll give it to you on the spot, and then you can give it to them, at your leisure. Once you're done, I always recommend coming back into their member information and put that email address back in and save. That way, if they need to have their email address in the system so that they get newsletters or something like that, they have a way to get that. And that's the member profile. That is a huge chunk of what we do to kind of like help members. If they call and they say, hey, I need my name updated, you now know to go into, click this pencil, come here, change their name. If you need to change their address, all of that kind of stuff, that's where you go to make those changes. So now let's talk about the options that are up here in the upper right-hand corner. We have 4 buttons, 2 of them for members and 2 of them for non-members. So you have add a member. When you click on this, it's going to ask you to fill in their membership type. It'll ask you to fill in, it should autofill for a year from whatever day you're adding them, their join date, their expiration date. And this will just take you through the same process that a member would for joining, except for we're doing it for them. So if someone calls you or sends you a check and says, I'd like to join, but I haven't gone on the website to join, we do have the option to do this for them. Once you're done with this, as a note, let's just fill in a little test person. There is this option down here where it says send new member emails. That is the email that is going to send them a username and a password. If we are setting up this account for someone who doesn't have an email, like we were talking before, we can uncheck this. And if we hit done, just like with resetting the password, it will tell us their username and password on the spot instead of sending it to them via email. Otherwise, it'll just have you go through the system and, either submit payment or set up their account for them. It is a similar process with non-members. If you want to add contact information to someone in your system, but they are not a member, instead of that whole step-by-step process, we just get this little pop-up screen where we fill in the non-members information and hit save, and they're added to the database. Obviously, this is much easier because we're not doing things like usernames and password. We're not doing anything like payment or anything of that sort. So it's just a more streamlined process. And then we have these 2 things here, member options and non-member options. For members, you have level changes. That's not something I think you guys are worrying about, but this is where you can come to, connect 2 accounts together to make it a primary and secondary account, often used for like married couples or companies. Drop expired. This is a button I personally recommend people don't touch. What this does is it drops everyone who is expired beyond a certain date. So if we click this, it's okay, we can see this screen. Then we have an option to fill in a date where we can say everyone that expired before, a year ago, anyone that's been expired for more than a year, go ahead and drop all of them. There's no undo for this. That's why I say kind of like watch out for this. If you do this process, it will drop everyone that expired before this date. And there is no way to get them back other than manually doing it one by one. So you can bring someone back from dropped, but if you drop 100 people this way, and for some reason you need to bring them back either to expired or to active, it is a pretty manual process. So that's one reason I say, be sure you want to do it if you're going to click that button. We actually have an extra stopgap. Even if I hit go, it's going to say, are you sure? And you have to say, yes, I am sure. So that's just one thing to be aware of. The last thing here is cleanup tools. This is a way, so you'll notice like we already have 2 Ronnie Levines. If at some point we want to kind of pare that down, cleanup tools lets us kind of search for duplicates in our system. So this gives us these match options. The most useful one is probably this one right here, this middle one, match expired to active first and last name. So the most common situation where we see duplicates in our system is where someone lets their membership expire and they don't renew. Instead of renewing, they just join again. So some people forget that they had an account, or they forgot their username and password, and they don't feel like calling someone, or they're embarrassed to say, I forgot my login. And so instead of renewing their existing membership, they just join again. It happens. Not super often, but it does. If we do this option and hit go, right now we don't have any because our system isn't currently active, but this will let you know everyone that has matching first and last name, where one profile is active and one profile is expired. That lets us kind of search those people. And then we can just click on them and, drop those accounts. Again, we would then do that drop process that we talked about, where we could say, this is a duplicate account, and move all of those transactions over to my old one. Once I do that for that person that is a duplicate, then it would be like they only ever had one account, and that one account has all information, both from their expired account and their new one that they signed up for. And then here under non-member options, we have a similar thing. We have how heard, which is where we want to add systems. So if you're this little add me to mailing list option up in the top left, you'll see there's this option, how did you hear about us? So when someone visits your website and says, hey, I want to get the emails about your organization, and they click this button, they can fill in their contact info. They only have to fill in a first and last name, and everything else is optional. You can always tell if something is optional or not by this little red dot letting you know you have to fill this in. And then you get this, how did you hear about us? And you can do things like email solicitation, or someone told me, so on and so forth. If you want to add options to that, you can add those heard options by clicking right here under how heard. And you can say, we have a magazine or something like that. The next option down is import non-members. This is a very useful tool if you have some sort of email campaign or membership drive. This is most often, especially if we have like in-person events at like a career day or something like that. You can come in here if you have a big long list of email addresses that you want to send to. We can come in here, and this gives us a little non-member data import. Obviously, if we're uploading a ton of members, that's something that Club Express wants to help you with and make sure that we get it right. Non-members are fortunately a lot easier to kind of clean up and take care of and, remove in bulk. So we can come in here, and if we click right here, this will give us a little description of how to upload this file, how to upload emails. But really, it's super simple. You just click right here. It's going to download an Excel sheet. You drop all of your information that you've collected. You can even just drop emails if you want. And then you upload that document again once you've dropped all your information into it. And you say, these are, interested people. Upload that file and then import. And then all of those people that you've imported those emails for are now in our system as non-members. And we can then use our built-in emailing system to send emails to all of them. So that's a useful tool to get, information about your organization out to a large number of people. And then finally, we have these cleanup tools. You'll notice our non-member cleanup tools are a little bit more robust than our member cleanup tools. That's because the non-member database is a lot easier to get messy. You will get non-member duplicates. It's just a part of, the way our system works. So anytime someone signs up for an event, if they're not a member, it creates a non-member record. Anytime someone says, add me to your mailing list, it creates a non-member record. That's how we track your contact list, essentially. If someone does that multiple times and I sign up as, Devin Destrada at Gmail, and I sign up as Devin Destrada at Club Express, that's two different records because I have two different emails. Or if I type my name differently, or if there's a change of address, those types of things can sometimes create duplicates. You have the option to find duplicates by different parameters, and then you can delete in bulk those duplicates. So this is actually a little bit more functional than the member one. You can actually just auto delete a whole bunch of duplicate memberships this way. All right, that is our People Manager tool. Before I move too far on, are there questions about things that you can do on this page? All right. Well, I will roll right into administrative tools. So if we go back to our control panel, I'm going to hop over to, well, before I move on, let me show you one thing about reports before I move over to the organization tab. So here in the reports section, a lot of people always default to this first row of reports. Now, each of these is not an individual report. These are categorizations of reports. Each of these options you can click on will then give you more reports. I think last time I counted, we had something like 400-ish built-in reports. So if there's some sort of information you want about your system, I can almost promise you that there is a report for it. We have tons and tons, and we are always making more. Member contact list is useful. We usually order these in order of what was most used. Personally, I always jump straight to membership info. This is where I go to get information about my members, because this will give you things like all of your members, what their status is, and sorted by name. You can get all of your members and what their status is sorted by expiration date. You can get all of your members grouped by their type. There's all sorts of really useful reports in this section. You can get all of your birthdays. It's really great. This section is full of really, really useful reports. If you require membership renewals, this will tell you everyone that needs to renew. It's great. It's awesome. I love this section so much. And then all you have to do is just pick your report and hit next. And anytime you're running one of our built-in Club Express reports, we let you export it in whatever format you want. And we have 5 choices: PDF, HTML, which is just like PDF, but it's going to open in your web browser; CSV, which is an Excel sheet that's completely unformatted. You can run your report in Word format or in formatted Excel format. I only use 2 of these. So this is where I will, give you my unsolicited advice, which is CSV is the best way to get your information because there's no extra formatting, and it will go into Excel and you can do things like sort and remove data as you want. The only other way I do it is sometimes is PDF if I want something that looks a little bit nice. And then if it's a PDF, it's mostly uneditable. So that way I know I'm keeping the information that I have run secure. Whereas if I do it in Word, it's pretty easy to edit that. And if I do it in formatted Excel, sometimes it's hard to sort when Excel has been formatted. All right, so let's hop over to our organization section for a minute. In this section, we're going to see all of our information about our organization, things like our organization's name, how our organization is broken up into chapters. What I want to show here is the actual administrative and coordinator panel. So if we come to this page and go down to setup, admins and coordinators, it sounds like most of you are going to be either one of these 2 things. So we have 2 different designations of the people that work behind the scenes of your group. We have administrators, who have complete and utter control of your system. They have access to your financials. They have access to changing what's on your web pages. They can change your menus. If you're an administrator, you have carte blanche to do whatever you like. And that includes with Club Express support too. So if you ever call Club Express support and you're like, hey, I want to change this something, even further behind the scenes, one of the things that we'll check is if you are an administrator, and if you're an administrator, we will make whatever change you ask for. So I would always advise, make sure that your administrators are people that are pillars in your organization, that you have, they hold a title in your organization that is top level. If someone needs any sort of limitations on their access, the other option here is coordinators, which is where we can come in and give someone huge amounts of control, but with some sort of limitation. So if we come down here and I hit add coordinator, I get this page and it looks very similar to what we were just looking at, which is the control panel. So the first thing I get is who am I adding as a coordinator? And I can come to this page. I won't save these changes, but I'll just say I'm going to grab a random person. And I'll say, I'm going to make Darcy a coordinator. And then you see all of these checkboxes. There's tons of them. This is where I can come in and say, I want Darcy to only be able to maybe access the people lookup. Now, people lookup is only different from people manager in that I can look people up and see their info, but I can't manage them. People lookup is seeing the people, but making no changes. We can come through here and check off whatever we want this coordinator to have access to. We can give them very specific access. You can even say, I want them to have everything even if we give them access to everything, this doesn't make them an administrator. There are still a few things they won't have access to, very specific things, like adding other coordinators. So like one coordinator, even if they have full access, cannot add another coordinator ever. And a coordinator obviously cannot make an administrator. So this is a admin only function we are doing right now. Once you have been added, you will then have to log out and log back in, and you'll see all of these controls show up. If I take people lookup away or people manager away, and they have everything but that, when they go to their control panel, they won't even see these. They'll be completely invisible to them. So you'll only see the sections of the control panel that are added for you. Once that's done, you just come down here and hit save. I'm going to hit cancel for now. Once you've added a coordinator, they'll show up on this list, and they'll have a few little buttons where you can click to get a preview of what functions they have access to. But in most organizations, I recommend you have somewhere between 2 to 4 administrators, and then the rest can usually be just coordinators where their access is, chosen. The reason I say at least 2 administrators, and you've already got 3 set up, so we're already kind of in that sweet spot. I always recommend you also never have only one administrator, because if for some reason, if that one administrator, say, expires or loses their username and password, it can sometimes cause an awkward situation. I've seen it before, and we're here at Club Express. We'll verify your identity, we'll verify your ownership of the organization, but it's a whole rigmarole to go around to trying to get you reinstated as an administrator if for some reason you lose access to your only administrator. Whereas if you have 2 or 3 administrators, if one loses control, they can always reach out to the other to fix it. It's a much shorter process to get control back in that scenario. The last thing on this page you'll see, and you'll see this for both admins and coordinators, is this little star, which is a favorites button, which you'll see up here, repeated again, favorites. For me, I always have my favorites set up as the people and the events manager, because those are the things I mess with the most. I can also edit my favorites from here, but another place you can edit favorites is by clicking on the star. Favorites is another admin only thing, and it's just quick links to get to a favorite part of your system. So I can come over here to Ronnie and say, I know Ronnie uses the people manager. Oop, not that one, people manager. And I can save. And now Ronnie has people manager selected. And instead of having to go to the control panel, click on people, then click on people manager, you can come straight up here to favorites, click people manager, and boom, we're straight in the people manager. So that's one of the useful tools for kind of like quick navigating to the functions that you use the most. Let's see, what else do we want to sign admins?
Devin, do we have a few minutes just to walk through the website?
Yeah, sure.
Just a little, just to give them a preview.
Yeah. So if we're gonna, walk through, I don't think we have a homepage set up at the moment. So I'm just gonna kind of walk around the website. I always love getting questions. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Just to kind of poke around, this is our contact page. If you click on contact us, this is where you'll go and you'll see things like your organization's address and phone number. You'll see everyone in your system that is listed as a visible contact. So right now it's just Ronnie, but if we give that person a title, you can sometimes have multiple people here that become available. A note about this page specifically, you'll notice right now I can click on this email address and send Ronnie an email. A lot of people get a little bit squeamish about their email address being so public. But if we log out and click on contact us, you'll notice that email is gone. You have the option to hide your email address from the public. So I have to be a member to have access to that email address. Additionally, even if you did make your email address public, Club Express knows that there's a lot of, kind of like robots out on the internet. So when you're not logged in as a member, the email address stored under here is actually an image and not text. So robots can't come in here and scrape your email address and send you a bunch of junk emails. So even if you make it public, only a human can actually do that. Kind of like those, are you a robot tests that you take sometimes. Below that on this screen is the send us an email. And this is where members and public can come in and send an email to your organization without actually having to like type it out. They can put it in here and hit send email, and Club Express will send an email to your administration saying, hey, I was curious about membership, or hey, I'm having trouble logging in, whatever they want to, say to your organization. Go ahead and log back in. Looks like you've got a few pages set up already. Oh, these are linking to your other website.
Yeah, this is just our parent site. It doesn't really have pages on it, really. But it looks like we are actually coming to the end of the session. I did want to say that we will be offering another session, training session. This is one of two. So just to let you all know, and we do have a few minutes if anyone has any questions for Devin. No questions. It looks like. Well, one of the things that we're definitely going to cover in the next session will be how to manage the website as well as events. So how to set up events. So Devin will go over that. We haven't picked a date exactly yet for the second training, but I will reach out and let you all know about that when that is scheduled. And thank you, Devin.
Yeah, my pleasure. If you guys, like I said, there will be a recording of this, so I'll send that out in the next, probably early next week, once I've got the kind of, I tend to edit it just a little bit. And I will send that to Ronnie, who can then distribute that download link to all of you. And then additionally, like if you're watching that recording, or if, later today or something like that, you have a question about something, feel free to email me. I really don't mind answering questions. So you can always email me, just Devin, DEVIN at clubexpress.com. Just shoot me an email, and I'll, if you have a small question, I'll definitely try to answer it.
And I will just jump in and say, for those recordings, we actually post them on every single chapter site. So we have had 2 previous training sessions, and those videos are already on each chapter site. And these that we are today's session and the future one that we're doing will also be posted. And also, just to let you know that Devin showed you the administrators forum. We also have set up for all of the NIGP chapters, we have an NIGP administrators forum. So for those questions that you want to reach out to your fellow NIGP chapter colleagues, in terms of how they're doing things on the Club Express site, there will be that forum as well, which will appear on your chapter site. So just FYI.
All right, guys. Well, I will see you next time. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Devin.
All right. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.